this whole month as we are thinking about and talking about and focusing on this theme of spirituality in action, it really is an action for us to be able to take, to give acceptance, to really allow for people to be different from the way that we are, and to allow for there to be the acceptance of different choices. Like, I believe that I make really good choices. And I do. I consistently make really good choices for me. But I don't necessarily know what the best choice is for you. And that is a big part of what we want to begin to think about today, because so often when we are dealing with what's going on in the world, we make assumptions that everyone should think the way that we think and do the things that we do and believe what we believe, and that's just completely unrealistic. Totally unrealistic, because there are over 7 billion people on the planet. And every type of person, every culture has been created by the same source. Like, I believe that diversity is a divine idea. It is an idea that came from the mind of God, and I don't believe God made any mistakes. And so the universal expression of diversity in humanity must be on purpose. So when we put our spirituality in action, we have to begin and do our own work individually about who we want to be in the world, how we want to be in the world, and at the same time, we need to be able to look in the mirror, see ourselves clearly, and also see how our actions impact everyone else. And so today I'm going to focus on this idea of looking in the mirror. Ignoring the beauty and value of you and the uniqueness of different types of people is equivalent to ignoring God and refusing to see all the ways that God shows up as humanity. And when I think about it like that, then it becomes really easy for me to recognize that there are many, 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 many different ways that humanity can express. And I don't have to be the warden for all of these different ways of expressing. When you look in the mirror, who do you see? Now, physically, you might see yourself, right? The physical presence of you. But do you also see that everything that is in you is in someone else, and the reflection of someone else who might look really different from you? Do you also see, when you look in the mirror, that there are many different cultures, many different types of people that actually are part of you? Some of you have noticed the ring that I typically wear on this hand, and it is a ring that the artist titled The Gathering of Men. And this ring is a signature ring for me, and a lot of the etching is now worn off. But you can still see, when you look at it, that the ring is made up of individual people all the way around, and they are connected at their ankles. They are shackled together. Now, there is a double meaning for that. This ring was part of a series related to the Ma'afa, or to the slave trade, and it was one piece in a complete collection. And so there was an intentional choice to represent that during slavery, humanity, people were connected together, were shackled together, and that could present pain and limitation. But the artist also made it very clear that as she was designing this ring, her goal, her intention was that people would also look at the ring and say, what if in humanity today we made decisions and behaved in a way that reminded us all that everything that one person does impacts or affects every other person? And so in that sense, we are all shackled together. It may not be ankle to ankle to ankle to ankle with metal shackles, but our choices, our activities, our behavior, our culture, the things that we do individually and collectively have an impact on everyone else. Martin Luther King wrote a speech once where he talked about how we are all connected together, how we are all interconnected, that you can't even get through breakfast in the morning without remembering or realizing that your coffee may have come from Brazil and your biscuits may have come from England. And he gives examples of how everything that we do from the moment we wake up, using soap, all of your morning rituals represent a different culture. And we have learned to utilize that which we believe is useful and helpful or that we enjoy. And at the same time, if we're not careful, we push away from things we don't understand, and we judge them, often unfairly. So the question I want you to be thinking about over the next few minutes is this question of, when you look in the mirror, does your reflection look like me? In the Bible, in the book of John, there's the scripture that reminds us that we are to love one another. The verse really begins with my commandment, my next commandment to you is to love one another, even as I have loved you, that you must also love each other. By this I will know you are my disciples. The people you engage with every day, the people you work with, the people you meet who are strangers, the cashier in the grocery store, the attendant at the car wash, the neighbor who lives next door to you. Would they know by your behavior that you are one of the disciples of love? That you are one of the disciples who represents wholeness and harmony and unity, peace, prosperity, beauty in the world? Now, I don't want you to raise your hand, because I'm not really here to put you on the spot, but I do want you to really answer that question in your own mind. Would people who know you know that you are a disciple of the one who represents love, the one who represents goodness and wholeness in the world? Like, is that energy expressing in, as, and through you? And if your answer is no, you have an opportunity right now to begin to shift that, if you choose. Now, I will admit that almost everywhere I go, I intentionally mean to be a representative of this wholeness, this wisdom, this love, this joy, this peace. I intentionally have chosen that and worked on it for a long time. So it is often my default. I don't see Darlene in the room right this moment, but one day I was walking through the grocery store, and I have a spiritual practice that has a long story behind it, but I'll just tell you the short version. So I have a spiritual practice. When I'm in the grocery store and I'm grocery shopping, I smile. I smile. Now I do it automatically, but for probably about 6 months, I intentionally trained myself because I had been going through the grocery store and you're looking at labels and you're looking at prices, and I would be really intense about that. And someone said something to me that indicated they thought I was like in a bad mood or I was having trouble, and somebody who worked in the store had come up to me and said, like, is there a problem? Can I help you with anything? I'm like, no, I'm just shopping. And so I said, I can look at labels and I can compare prices, and I don't have to be like that intense. It's not that big of a deal. I'm going to use my grocery shopping time to smile. So one day I was in the grocery store and I was walking up and down the aisles and I was smiling, and many of you know Darlene Fluker, and she was in the grocery store on her way home from work, and I didn't see her because I was in my spiritual practice. It was almost like a walking meditation. And she walks up to me and gets like right in front of me and says hello. And I'm like, oh, hey, Darlene, how you doing? She's like, what's so good? Like, I'm like, what? She's like, well, I mean, you were walking, I watched you. You were walking and you had this great big smile on your face. I'm like, life? I don't know. I mean, life is good. And then I told her, yeah, it's my spiritual practice. I smile when I'm in the store, blah, 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 blah. However, there is one place where I don't do that, and that is at the skating rink. So there are a few of you in the room who have witnessed me at skating. I don't talk to people. Now, many of you know I roller skate twice a week if I'm in town, more often if I could. And, I'm addicted. I admit it. I'm a skate junkie. I love it. And it's good. And it's part of my spiritual practice too, but it's almost like a meditation practice. And so that's the one place where I'm not smiling at people. I'm not, hey, girl, how you doing? Hey, what happened last week? Well, how did that thing work out? No. So that is the one place in my life that, yes, if you ask the people at the skating rink, do you think that Tracy is one of the disciples of love and joy and peace? They're going to say no. And I'm okay with that. It is a conscious choice that is my one place where I don't have to give, I don't have to be engaged, I don't have to be, inside I am being the same person. Like I don't do anything mean or I'm not angry, I just don't engage with people there because I engage with you when I'm here, right? Yes? Oh, okay. So when we think about spirituality in action and we look in the mirror for what is ours to do, a lot of it does come from this commandment of loving others the way that our mystical and spiritual leaders have modeled love. Now, obviously, this scripture is from the Bible, and it is the words of Jesus speaking to disciples and to people, saying, this is how people will know that you are my disciple. But we could use the same phrasing, the same message from anyone who has shown up in the world in a way that models and demonstrates love. So pick your hero or heroine. That person or that celebrity or that leader who has been an example of love, where it is obvious they are loving themselves and understand who they are and also expressing that out in the world. There are a lot of people around you who look different from you, who reflect different cultures, who are different age groups. who represent different races, ethnicities, sexual orientation, gender identity, who've grown up with different religious and cultural backgrounds. When you look in the mirror, do you see how you are connected to each one of those? Can you see them in your reflection? Can you see how you have been influenced by other cultures? Who do you see? Or do you simply just see yourself, the physical presence of you, and while you're doing your spiritual work, you are going to stand in and speak from and behave from the point that your way is the only way? And if that is where you are right now on your journey, I don't judge that. I just invite you to begin to open your mind. Ernest Holmes wrote about us being open at the top, never stagnating and being locked into a false belief that any and everything that is known right now is all there is to ever be known. Look in the mirror. Who do you see? Look in the mirror. Who do you see? Do you see the shared ancestry? Do you see the culture, what you have picked up in food or in music from different cultures? Circumstances do not create themselves. They are always molded by someone's thought patterns. And so when we have situations in the world that reflect anger and fear and doubt and pain, those circumstances did not create themselves. They are created from our individual thought and how we engage with individual people, and they are the result of our collective thought as a group. So whatever identity group I am representing, and all of us represent at least 36 different identity groups, right? The circumstances reflect how I individually and my identity group think about how we want to be in the world. So there is racism in the world. There is discrimination in the world. There is hunger and poverty. There is all manner of circumstances that don't reflect the best, that don't reflect what Spirit has for us to do, that don't reflect the peace that could exist in the world. But they didn't happen by accident. Those circumstances are the reflection of the collective thought patterns, and our thoughts, of course, then drive our behaviors. So it's all well and good to say, well, you know, I know that's happening over there. It's so bad. It's so tough. You know, it's so big. I don't think I can do anything about it. So, you know, I'm just not going to watch the news. Oh, I'm just not going to be involved. Oh, I'm just going to turn my back on it. But that's bypassing the fact that your thoughts and your thoughts drive your behaviors, and your behaviors create habits and systems in the world. And if you are not actively engaged in shifting into the good, if you are not actively engaged in doing something that shifts the negative to the positive, if you are not actively shifting the thought patterns, not just in your mind individually, but in the culture, then you're basically saying it's okay that all of these conditions continue to exist. And I don't know about you, but I'm not willing to allow all these conditions that are out of alignment with the perfection of the divine to simply continue. What I choose to work on may not be what you choose to work on. What you choose to work on may not match what you choose to work on. But individually and collectively, we must bring a higher consciousness into physical expression in the world. When you look in the mirror, can you see behind the physical veneer the reflection of another, of someone of a different age group, a different ethnicity, a different socioeconomic level, a different education experience. Can you see beyond the physical and know that each one you come into contact with is already a part of you? When I look in the mirror, I want to see all of humanity. I want to bring my spiritual values to these worldly challenges, knowing I am not just doing it for myself, for my own comfort, for my own prosperity or my own privilege. I am doing it so that I can fulfill or contribute to the vision that Centers for Spiritual Living has to create a world that works for everyone. If I don't do that, the worldly challenges get more power and my spiritual values shrink. I want my spiritual values to grow and expand and show up, and I want the worldly challenges to shrink. Is there anybody in the room who's with me on that? Yeah, I mean, that is what we're about. And it's not about politics. It is about a spiritual or a commitment to spiritual values being expressed in the world in a way that they can be observed, in a way that they can be measured, in a way that they can be tracked, in a way that they can actually create the kind of change that gives us heaven on earth. That is what the conversation is about. So Annalise Keating says the spiritual components of life cannot be divorced from politics. They cannot be divorced from sexuality. They cannot be divorced from writing. They cannot be divorced from daily living, because there is absolutely nothing that occurs in life that is outside of the circle of God. Nothing. And so if it is happening, then we need to bring the God presence to it, if that's what we want to see. Now, if you don't care and that's not what you want to see, then just don't do anything. And those people who have the energy to create conflict and to create judgment and to live from a place of fear will continue to do that, because their emotion will overwhelm the apathy. So this is what we're talking about this month. And what I invite you to do is to, as you go through your week, look at people. Like, really look at people. Don't get arrested. I don't want to see you on a viral social media video where somebody started recording you because they thought you were about to attack their friend or them, right? But look around you and really ask yourself, when you see people who don't look like you or don't look like they're part of your quote-unquote tribe, can you see them in yourself? And can you see yourself in them? This is what it means to look in the mirror and to remind ourselves that we are part of the totality of humanity. And so I've asked a few people if they would come and help me bring this message in a slightly different way. And so would the three of you come up, please? Here. Because this idea of looking in the mirror is a practice, actually. It's or it can be a spiritual practice. And I want you, before we go deep into this, I invite you to show some appreciation to Maru and Janice and Travis.
I see traces of you in my ancestry tree. Everywhere that I go, you are right there with me. But when you look around as you go about town, do you recognize yourself in the people all around?
Or do you see them as other? Do you see them as threat? Do you fear those you think do not look like yourself? Do you name them and blame them and build a false fence? Does your self-worth rely on more murder and nonsense?
Why cling to the lie that you deserve to sit high when your throne is a pedestal built on stories falsified? The truth is not hidden, yet you refuse to see, as if stubborn ignoring will change history.
In this world we've created, there is violence and doubt.
There is little respect. You look others out. You make your world smaller, believing it is safer.
But you lie to yourself, and lies morph into hatred.
Look in the mirror.
Who do you see?
When you look in the mirror,
Does
Does
your
your
reflection
reflection look like me?
Can you see the shared history? Do you claim the shared destiny? Do your eyes reveal my soul or only an enemy?
Are you willing to change? Or would that just be too strange? Is it too much to expect that you would demonstrate respect or acknowledge all life is birthed by the same midwife?
what now do we do to create a breakthrough? For the time has arrived when you absolutely must choose. What team will you join? Who are you willing to abuse?
Can you stand by and watch children starved, caged, and shot? Can you pretend not to care? Will you heal your blind spots?
Become more aware, be willing to dare.
Don't stay quiet and safe until you've waited too late.
And find the ones you love most and experiencing the very same fate.
Look in the mirror.
Who do you see?
When you look in the mirror,
Does your reflection look like me?
Beautiful. Ernest Holmes reminds us that we are to love all humanity. And he writes that it is important to do this. In fact, it is a requirement to do this. And in our human thinking, we might think, well, I love my family. I can't love all of humanity. That's a lot of people. And his advice to us is that you don't have to love your family or your loved ones less. You simply must love all of humanity more. Let us take that into prayer. And I breathe into that place that is the center of life itself, reminding myself that as I quiet my brain and I still my body, life is still happening, and it needs no help from me. For the creator of all of life is operating in all ways, always. And it is expressing life, it is creating life, it is expanding life, it is evolving life. So my life is just an expression of that one infinite intelligence and boundless love. It is a part of me, it is all of me, and I am a part of it. and my spiritual DNA allows me to demonstrate that same givingness, that same love, that same peace, and that same joy with everyone I come into contact with. Knowing that this is true for me, I claim and know that it is true for everyone within the sound of my voice. And I invite you to allow my words to be your words. I claim right here and now that I commit to love all humanity. I claim right here and now that when I look in the mirror, I will look more closely than I have ever looked before so that I can see every generation, every ethnicity, every age group, everyone with all the thousands of identity groups. And I will engage in the world in a way that reminds me that even though there may not be physical shackles around my ankle, there are shackles nonetheless. And this is good, that these are not shackles that must create pain. They are shackles that allow me to dance in the world with someone just like a child may put both feet on the feet of a parent, and the parent dances with them and moves them around the room, and it is joyful. That joy is what I claim and that I move toward. I set the intention to be spirituality in action. I set the intention now to know that there is good that comes from being around and being with people who are different from myself. I move into this week with a firm commitment to be an example of love in the world, no matter what. Grateful for the opportunity to renew my commitment to be this love. Grateful for the opportunity to renew that commitment with kindred spirits. Grateful to choose to do this now. I simply release it all into the dynamic flow of spiritual law and eternal love. And I invite you to affirm it with me by repeating after me. Amen, Ashe, Aho, Shalom, Amin, and so it is.